let's have a view of the graphic user interface. First of all, the web page of our GUI is designed with a template that has two different areas. The first one is the header, so this part that has three main buttons that are on, standby, and reset, that where you basically can turn it on, put on standby, and reset the transmitter system. And then there's a monitoring view that is always present. It doesn't matter in which page or sub menu are you operating, and it gives you the most important monitoring parameters of your transmitter. So you have the status, if it's ready or not ready, so if it's on or not, the forward and reflected power, the frequency, the standard mode, and the reference if you need to reference like an external one, like GPS, for example. And the second area of the template, that is this area, we can call it operation area. It's a deep monitoring, so it depends on which sub menu are you operating or you are looking into. It gives you more information, so more detailed parameters. And if you are operating, so you are setting up or managing the transmitters, it's where actually you will need to change, and you can change whatever parameters you need to change. So let's start from transmitters. Transmitters, we have the overview that is actually what we were looking into, and is also the home page of the GUI. And you can see some alarms and the status, the configuration, that it's what you have been that you have done before, or what is going to change, whatever parameters you're going to change, and the powers level. The configuration, that it's actually the configuration that is actually the part where you are setting up your equipment in terms of standard, in terms of power, channel, and where you add one or more amplifiers depending of which kind of system you are operating with. The power settings, of course, in watts or dBm, so the maximum power, or if for whatever reason you need to go with a different level of power. The M+1 settings, that is always present, that whatever, if you are operating with a transmitter system that has a backup, so can have one or more backup transmitters. The channel settings, so the frequency that you are operating. The third is the management. Management page is giving an idea on all the measures that is monitoring the system itself, like again for the power, reflected power, and of course the temperature of the amplifiers as the exciter. Again, in the TICS transmitter management, you will see whatever alarms, and you can set it up doing the setup of your alarms now. Then you will have the GPS, that of course you have the GPS menu if it's required or you need to use the GPS. The amplifier, that has, since the name is basically to give you all the information that is about the one or two or more amplifiers, whatever is the system, depending on the system that you are operating. And the pre-correction that gives you an alarm, since it's a very sensitive part of the GUI, that it's of course useful when you are doing the first installation, or for whatever reason you need to reinstall or change the frequency. So you will need to redoing the pre-correction, linear and nonlinear, and you can see the parameters here, that in this case they are all off, since our system is not operating right now. Then you will have some of the parameters that are related to the standard, so the digital standard you're operating, that in our case is ATSC. So you will have something that is related to the input, so how you fitting in terms of content your exciter, and some that are strictly related to the IP input. Another important submenu is the alarms, that gives you the it's basically a monitoring page where you can see the general alarms that are part of the transmitters, the amplifier alarms, the exciter, and the input alarms. In this case, the transmitter is on standby, and the only alarm that is detected that there's no input on the exciter. The setup menu, where you can have the IP configuration for the IP port input of your exciter, and in case, of course, you have the control logic, the board configuration too, the general setup, when you can define the clocks of the time and the reference of your transmitter system. Some of the options on the management that are related to standard serial numbers of the equipment and the authorization codes of the equipment itself. The maintenance menu that give you the opportunity to download or upload, for example, a new firmware from PC, so from your computer or from an external USB key. And this is very important because it's the place where you can also, since every exciter, every PCM size exciter has two different memories, it means that you can have two different firmware for whatever reason, whatever need, always present on your internal driver, and you can basically, from here is the place where you do to maintain your transmitter system. This is also very important with you in your network. You have more than once, and so it's the place if you need to upload a configuration, a specific configuration on a firmware. This is the place where you can operating. Log file management. This is very important when we are facing whatever problem, and this is the first place where you go, because besides to have a view from here of what happened, so what is being recording from your transmitter, you can download your log file and send to our engineer, our technical supports, that can give you an answer to analyze the behavior of your equipment. The reboot, that whatever you need to reboot your equipment, and a firmware switchback that is actually related what I was telling you before, that every equipment has two different memory bank. Administration is give you, as we were talking before, internally we have a web server, so you have different level, different users that you can set up, and here's the place where you can set up the password basically for each one of those users. You will depend from us for the before the first installation. Normally it's the customer to ask us how many type of operators, so administrators, guest, and operator. Each one of them has different kind of responsibilities, so they can operate in the system in with different permits. And here is the place if you need, for example, to change the password for whatever user. And about it gives you a quick view. This is very useful whatever problems or information you need for factory. This is the place that gives you all the information about the system that you are operating with, hardware and software. Okay, so we go back to the overview and the home page of our GUI, and we turn it on the transmitter. In this case is a lab demo that we have here, that it's on channel 45. Now you see that the power is increasing. We still have some alarms that we can go and see why. And as I was telling you before, we have 2 input error because we actually don't have input, but we are able to turn it on and give some power to our transmitter system, since there's like test mode. This is a functionality very useful of our transmitters, that it gives you the opportunity to test your transmitters with all the final parameters before to put it on the antenna on a dummy load, even without an input. So you can test your transmitters in the lab or even on your transmitter side, even when you don't have an input, a video input.